Hey, thank you for joining us for an episode of the Medicine Mentors, where we interview leading physicians on the best tips, lessons, and pathways to mastery for aspiring physicians. Our mission is to learn from top mentors the most effective paths to mastery and fulfillment in medicine and to spread their knowledge. Today we have the honor of speaking with Dr. Susan Hingle, who is one of the most influential and reputable doctors in her field. Dr. Hingle is a general internist and professor of medicine and associate dean, as well as director of faculty development for the Center of Human and Organizational Potential at the SIU School of Medicine. Dr. Hingle is also a fellow with the prestigious Executive Leadership in Academic Medicine program. In this episode, Dr. Hingle offers priceless advice on right intention, seizing opportunities, mentorship, affecting positive change, and other key tips for reaching mastery in the field of medicine. Thanks for joining us for this wonderful opportunity to learn from one of the best mentors. Enjoy. I heard one thing that a lot of the opportunities you wouldn't have expected kind of early on. What do you think enabled you to take those opportunities?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. So I think some of them, I've always been had this internal desire to serve people, to help people. I remember growing up, there'd be like telethons on TV and requests for donations that I'd hear on the radio, and I would always make donations even though I didn't have money at the time. And my father would always kid me that I was going to need to marry someone rich to handle all of my philanthropy donations. So I think some of it is just innate to who I am. Things that I can see help others are the things that I'm drawn to, and so many of the opportunities that I really took advantage of were very service-oriented. I think I mentioned that I was really pretty shy growing up. I was not super talkative. I didn't have very good self-esteem, but there have been a few really important people and mentors in my life who believed in me, and they didn't push me, but I think their belief in me, their faith in me, and my desire to make them proud is another thing that really enabled me to take advantage of some of these opportunities. I mentioned one of them already, Dr. Mitchell, who was my program director at Georgetown. One of my professors in college who now has passed away, Dr. DeVilly, he was another one who really believed in me and helped me kind of step outside of my comfort zone on many, many occasions. My first boss here at SIU, Dr. David Stewart, was another one who really, without being pushy, was able to get me to step outside of my comfort zone. When I had the opportunity I had been nominated to be the Illinois ACP governor, and I thought I was too early in my career, too young. My kids, I've got two boys, they were 2 and 5 at the time, and figuring out kind of how to manage my regular work life plus my family life, then adding in ACP governorship, it was like one of the first things that I said no to. But when I was talking to Dr. Stewart about it, he said, it's your prerogative to say no. You know yourself better than anyone else. And he said, but I believe that you can do this. If anyone can do it, it's you. And I want you to do it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And it was a phenomenal decision. I figured out how to manage everything, and that opportunity led to other opportunities. So I would say that my mentors and people who believed in me was a big factor too.
You know, you mentioned mentorship. In today's day and age, how should one find a mentor? And at SIU and other places, being involved with ACP and knowing how kind of the state and the status of internal medicine is across the country, what do you think is the best way to find mentors and to be able to take advantage of the mentorship?
I think you can find mentors in lots of different places and ways. I think if you're in your local environment and you hear about someone that sounds like they would be a valuable mentor, or if you're at a talk that someone gives and you think someone's got insights and things that you want to learn from, don't be afraid to ask them. Say, I'd love to get to know you, to meet you. I was impressed by whatever. And most people really, mentoring is fun. It's so enjoyable. It's part of the work that we do, but it's not work. It's just very, very rewarding. And I think people will be surprised that how willing the people that they ask are in sharing their time and experiences with. Likewise, I think you can even do that if you attend any national meetings. If you go up to people and tell them that what they had to say was valuable and you'd like to learn more from them, many of them are going to, again, say, sure, I would love to mentor you. I would love to talk with you more. So again, it's not easy to do that, but because it feels like an intrusion, I mean, I still get that from students and residents and other people all the time. You're so busy. I can't believe you made time for me. But to me, it's one of the best parts of what I get to do. So I think some of it is just asking people. I think if you've got people that you work with and you have areas of interest that they're not able to really help you with, they'll probably be able to make connections for you. So again, just being open and honest about what you're looking for in a mentor, people will help you kind of figure out who that might be. There are some formal mentoring programs. Most of the time, those tend not to be as successful. I think a big part of mentoring is not just sort of expertise part, but it's the finding people that you connect with on a personal level, on kind of a human level. And a formal mentoring program, it's going to be really hard for that to really be able to be factored in.
So basically take the initiative and understand that people are out there and they're willing to help you.
Right. And if you tend to be more introverted or shy, or even if you're not, don't view what you're asking as a burden to them.
Nice. I was reading through your bio, Dr. Hingle, and you've received a number of teaching awards. And even when I met you, it seems like at your core, you are a teacher. So could you tell us what's the secret to teaching and to being successful?
Oh, gosh, another great question. I think a lot of it is also kind of relational, understanding your students on both the academic level, so understanding sort of where they're at, what their level is, but also on a personal level, because everyone learns differently, and one approach definitely does not fit all. And so taking the time to really get to know your learners' unique attributes and kind of where they're at allows you to really tailor the instruction so that it's memorable and meaningful. And to me, that also is what makes it personally enjoyable to me, because again, most of good experiences that we have in life are based on the relationships that we have. And so if you view teaching as an opportunity to develop different types of relationships with people, that's where you end up getting the joy from it. So I think that's a big part of it. I think valuing it, putting a high priority on it is something else that's important. I think medical education is super challenging because we're doing so many things at the same time. We're taking care of patients at the same time as we're taking care of our learners. We're also hopefully taking care of the staff that we work with. So it's kind of multitasking, and what most doctors get paid for is the patient care part of things. And so that's where a big part of the mental energy goes, and less of it goes to education. And so I think you have to be very, very intentional about what you're doing. So I think that's another big piece of it.
When you talk about intention, I've heard that a lot, especially talking to so many leaders. They really emphasize the point of being intentional and the power of intention. What do you mean when you say that, Dr.
I think a lot of it is just really thinking about it. I think reflection is also an essential part of intention. So at the end of each encounter that I have with a patient, I have trained myself to think about how did that go? What went well? What didn't go well? What could I do better next time? What could I do different next time? At the end of an encounter with a learner, same thing. I've trained myself to think, what went well, what didn't go well, what can I do differently next time to make it more effective? I have trained myself to, at the end of each day, think about, the good things that happened that day and what made them good, what things didn't go so well that day, and what could I do differently so I might not make the same mistakes again the next time. So that's kind of what I mean by intention, is just really being thoughtful about what I'm doing and how to continue to improve.
I understand that you've done a lot of work in the gender equity space. So I wanted to ask you, how did you get into or interested in working on improving that, and what have you seen?
So a lot of that work has been more recent, I would say, over the past 5 years or so. I think I had always, maybe not always is too strong of a word. I think I had an interest in it previously, but didn't really have the avenues, platforms to really do anything. And as I was able to advance in my career, many of those platforms became available, and so I think that was a big part of it. So I credit the women physicians who are earlier in their careers in really motivating me to do this, because they came to me wanting help with addressing some of these issues. And so again, I think the opportunity became available and I had the platform. So one example is the ACP Council of Resident Fellow Members, I think it was them, who submitted a resolution to the ACP's Board of Governors asking them to really make a statement about a gender pay gap. And so as we started to look at that, in order to address the gender pay gap, you really have to address a lot of the other gender disparities that happen in medicine, because it's how pay is figured out. There's so many different factors. And so that request really ended up turning into a full position paper on gender equity in medicine. And in really working on that, we found that the issues have been similar for a really long time, and just making a position statement, making a policy statement probably was not alone going to be effective, because this is such a complicated issue that is not just within medicine, but society as a whole. And so we were trying to figure out how to really personalize it, because when you personalize things, that's when you're much more likely to be able to affect change. So it's one thing to say that someone's getting paid 60%, 70% of what their male counterpart is. But when you hear the story and it's someone that you care about, then I think people really start to pay attention. And so I think as more and more women shared their stories, learned more and more about the different things that we needed to be addressing, and had come up with some different ways to try to do that. So I think that's kind of the story of how I got involved in it. I remember when we first started taking this on, someone said to me, "Oh, you got to be really careful with this stuff." And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "You don't want to be known as one of those women," implied one of those difficult women. And, I reflected on it, and I thought, here I am. I've got this national platform that I'm not going to have for very long. I need to take advantage of that in order to really affect change, and came around to actually, I do want to be one of those women, and I want to do it in a way that it changes what one of those women means to people. So I think some of it is, it takes a little bit of courage and bravery, I think. But I encourage people all the time, if you have a platform, use it.
What is one thing as residents we can do from your experience to increase our levels of wellness? If there was one thing to pick.
One thing, I would say to fully accept the concept that self-care is not selfish, that self-care is essential. In medicine, we tend to prioritize others over ourselves, and that is not a healthy thing to do often. So I think you have to equally prioritize self-care, because if you're not well, you can't take care of others to the best of your abilities. Most medical schools still use the Hippocratic Oath, which in it, says that the care of the patient comes above care of yourself. There's a newer oath called the Oath of Geneva, which I know a few medical schools have adopted. And one of the elements of the Oath of Geneva is self-care.
Having come across, thousands of students, residents, trainees, Dr. Hingle, what do you find is common characteristics of the most successful of these?
Wow, great question. I think humility and people who reflect on the meaning of the work and the goals of their work and don't get caught up in sort of the ambitious drive for what is sort of that American society, I don't know, I think it is spreading, but defines as success. And much of that revolves around money rather than personal goals. So most people go into the medical profession because they want to help people. And somewhere along the line, a lot of people get off track and it becomes about the next step. How can I make the most money? How can I make my family the most comfortable? And they get caught up in all of that. And so I think really humility and focusing on what drew you to the profession and what excites you about the profession.
If there was one thing, knowing all that you know now and having been through all that you've been through, Dr. Hingle, that you would like to tell the 25-year-old going into medical school, what would that one thing?
That it's a true gift to be a doctor. It's hard work, some days much harder than others, but never lose sight of the gift that you've been given as a physician. Even the lowest paid doctor, we can pay our bills really without difficulty. We don't have to make a decision between paying for our medicine and paying for our food like many of our patients do. We are well-respected profession. People look up to us, and kind of with that gift comes a lot of expectation, a lot of opportunity to really affect change. And so don't take that gift for granted. Really use it to its fullest, because, again, we have so many opportunities to make the world a better place, but you got to pay attention as you're going along the road, because otherwise we'll probably fall short. And if we fall short, then, again, if you are reflective, you can learn from that mistake or that failure, and it can lead to other successes.
Wow, Dr. Hingle, I'm very inspired. Thank you so much for being so open and honest and sharing, kind of the stories of your life and how you came this far. Is there anything else, Dr. Hingle, that we might have missed?
Not off the top of my head.
Perfect. Yeah, but I really enjoyed hearing about how the core of relationships has kind of kept you through various stages and phases of your life and your career. And I really appreciate your spending this time with me.
Oh, I appreciate you asking. It was a true pleasure and privilege, so thank you so much. And as you kind of go along, if I can do anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Hello again. That concludes today's episode of the Medicine Mentors with Dr. Hingle. We hope you took something away from Dr. Hingle's offerings, because she truly is a wealth of knowledge and an exemplar model for physicians. Please subscribe to stay updated on our newest episodes featuring the insights of top physicians And please do comment about your experiences and progress to keep the conversation going. Thank you for joining us for this opportunity to learn from medicine's masters.